public role, take on a kind of public role. But women should also be greatly valued for what they do in the home, for what they do contribute to marriage, home life, creating an atmosphere in the home, raising children. I mean, men are also helping out there, but as most mothers know, we'd like them to help out a lot more than they do. But what we do there, for men and women, what we do in the home is crucial. It's more important, actually, on a scale of true values than what we do in the public square. All those things, those material things, should be at the service of persons and the nurturing of persons, the formation of persons. Very important role, and I think women should be awarded for that. Secondly, if there are, so this view, I think, as you may have picked up by now, acknowledges that there are some differences between men and women. And this does not by itself mean that we have to have an inequality or we have to value one more than the other. Rather, we could see this as a kind of positive thing because it makes the collaboration between men and women possibly much more fruitful. Why should we incorporate more women in the workforce and politics and so forth? Just because women have a slightly different perspective and outlook on things. As the earliest feminists pointed out, all right, it may not be a monolithic perspective. I always resent having to talk about the woman's view on something. There's no one woman's view. But women do have a different voice here, and I think it's an important voice to incorporate into our decision making. All right, finally, I think this new perspective is pro-life, and I think that's very consistent with the other concerns I've already spoken about. It sees women's fertility as a gift rather than a handicap or a weakness or a problem, an enemy of our happiness, an enemy of women's happiness and an enemy of men's happiness. In fact, it sees children or fertility as a gift, children as a positive good, for the culture, but also for mothers and fathers, for the family. Women are entrusted with life in its fragile beginnings, right? Men as well, but women obviously have the kind of critical role, the indispensable role with life in its very earliest stages, the first 9 months of life. How empty are our worldly accomplishments when they require us to violate that trust? Right, we should not have to choose. Women should not have to choose between their career, their economic survival, and their unborn children. Right, that is a lose-lose, you might say, situation. Rather, our society has enough resources, has enough ingenuity, enough wealth to take care of everyone. Right, the women who are in crisis pregnancies, women who are pregnant, generally speaking, right, and the children as well. Right, so we should not be, in my mind, offering a woman abortion as an answer to her situation is really to abandon her. It's an abandonment of her. It's saying we will not, we are not offering you the kind of positive affirmation of your pregnancy, of your child. Here you go. If this is a problem for you, let's just offer the termination of the pregnancy, which of course terminates the life. Secondly, of course, this goes with a certain view of children, and children are seen as gifts, not as obstacles to our happiness, not just as a burden that we have to drag around like an albatross around our necks, trying to do our other things while we're also taking care of our children. Obviously, the combination of all these tasks for women who are working outside the home or have other obligations outside the home, much of the work that women do in community life, which is not in the home per se, but in schools and so forth, is unremunerated, right? It's not paid. I think it'd be interesting to think about this possibility of paying women for raising children. I mean, a thinker recently suggested that if the only way we can value what someone does, their contribution, is by putting money into it, right, by rewarding them monetarily, then maybe we'll just have to start paying women for raising children. You may be surprised to learn that that suggestion came from the late Pope John Paul II, much more progressive thinker than many people give him credit for. Children have an important role to play, it seems to me, not just in our communities, but in our own lives, in the lives of our families, and in our own lives. They do require, right? To say children are a burden is a negative way of putting it, but they are a responsibility. So they require us to come out of ourselves, to overcome our selfishness and self-absorption, to make sacrifices, to serve the needs of someone else, and someone else that's not always going to be thankful for it. They're not constantly rewarding you in that way, right, with gratitude. And children, I think, the value of children, which most people do recognize, is a rebuke to the culture of use. Our culture is one of consumerism, of materialism, valuing material things, valuing technical progress and so forth over everything else, over persons. It's though persons are here to serve that, to serve the GMP, to serve technical progress and so forth, instead of all these things being at the service of the person. And the value of children cannot lie in those things. They're not really serving the GMP yet. And they are not valuable because one day they will be. Right? Rather, they are intrinsically valuable in and of themselves, just because they are. They are one of us. They are part of the human family, and every human being is part of the human family. So I believe this is very inclusive, you might say, totally inclusive view of what it means to be human, who deserves our concern, our love, our care, our focus, and regardless of whether this person is able to make a sort of material contribution. I think that women who cherish these values and priorities, which have often been marginalized in the press and in the academy, should take a broader role, you might say, a more active role in the world of politics. Women like this, we need to be more confident, I think, of our perceptions, our values, and much more courageous in defending them. So for those of you who share this perspective, I do urge you, in season and out of season, to, among your neighbors, your friends, not just in the public square, politically speaking, but in all of the areas where you hold influence, which are more than you might think, to continue to promote these, right? To not be apologetic about them, to realize that to be pro-child, to be pro-family, is in fact to be pro-woman. Thank you very much.